share. I think it takes a few seconds more because we're going live on like 6 or 7 different platforms. But yeah, I think we're live right now. Everyone who is in chat, please tell us if the sound is all right and the audio and the quality of the cameras. That's always the most important, so that you guys can hear us. I see there's already 120 people watching live, and this is just on my channel, so there's probably hundreds of people watching this right now. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I have to say thanks and shout out to Wikex. There's another guy on Twitter who basically came up with the idea, like, hey, maybe we can host a regular show with Cosmos legends to talk about the Cosmos Hub in specific, and Atom and its value accrual, its positioning. There has been a lot of like discussions and conversations around it in the past, right? And a lot of people are questioning what's the role of Atom, what's the future and sustainability of the Cosmos Hub as its own chain in the broader Cosmos ecosystem. So today we have an all-star absolute legend team. I mean, when I started this channel, I could never have thought about, having legends on this show so quickly. Even though I had all of you separately already on as an interview guest, but just having you all here means a lot for me personally, and it's amazing. So yeah, maybe I think you guys definitely don't need any introductions. Maybe I can do this real quick. We have Zaki, who is a core Cosmos person since many years, co-founder of Sommelier and Inclusion. He's also running a node. I think all of you guys are running nodes, so please delegate all your atoms and all your coins to all the nodes that are in the stream today. So Zaki has also worked a lot on the tokenomics design on Atom, has some great ideas also in terms of liquid staking, so we'll talk about this. Then we have Jack Zampolin, who is the man that basically dragged me into Cosmos. I will be forever thankful for that. And Jack has also proposed with Strangelove to add what's called IBC routing to the Cosmos Hub, which I think can bring in a lot of value for the Atom. So we'll talk about this later as well. Then we have Billy Rennekamp, who has also been here on the show. He is from the Interchain Foundation, and also currently the Cosmos Hub lead. So he's working on a lot of design mechanisms around Interchain Security. And then we have the legend, the man himself, Ethan Buckman, one of the 2 co-founders of Cosmos, absolute legend in the space. Now at Informal Systems, where he's also predominantly, I think, we can talk about this later, but working on shipping Interchain Security as well. So man, there's so much we'll talk about today. First question, I think we can jump right into it. Maybe we can start with Bucky.
Yes, give me for a second. I have to run and answer the door.
No worries. Yeah, so maybe we can start with Bucky. How would you describe the positioning and the role of the Cosmos Hub, as well as kind of like Atom's value proposition in the Cosmos ecosystem since it launched in 2019 until today?
Yeah, so thanks. Well, first, thanks a lot for throwing this together and having us on, and all the kind words. I think you've become a legend, a Cosmos legend in and of yourself. So it's great what you've been doing with the channel and all these videos. It's just awesome. So yeah, so I mean, the Cosmos Hub largely today. I mean, look, like we had this vision many years ago for a world of many blockchains, and there were a lot of pieces that needed to get built to make all of that happen. And the Cosmos Hub, primarily through its history, has been the chain where all of this tech got sort of first proven out, right? And that has left it a little bit in a position where it's more so like proving a whole new generation of technology rather than trying to be sort of an independent product unto its own. But it's the place where Tendermint Consensus first went live with a very large validator set, where the Cosmos Hub or the Cosmos SDK first went into production and proved that we could have a world where all these blockchains build application-specific blockchains for themselves. And it was the first place where IBC went into production and proved that you could set up, arbitrary chains and have permissionless transfer of assets and down the road data as well, and made all that a reality, right? And so the Cosmos Hub birthed all this stuff into the world, and now everyone's using it and running around like, hey, Cosmos Hub, how come you haven't done anything? It's like, wow, we made it, we made all of this possible. So that's sort of looking backwards, what the sort of Cosmos Hub enabled and created. And behind that, the Atom token has sort of been a focal point for the core vision and values of the Cosmos ecosystem, of sovereignty and interoperability, and of the funding of all of the public goods that sort of made all of that all of that possible, and all these other chains have sort of been spawning off of. So at the very least, there is increasing recognition, and this is happening through through airdrops especially, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more as we start to talk about what's coming next. Airdrops to Atom holders, this sort of recognition that Atom kind of enabled all of this, and the Cosmos Hub has been funding a lot of this. And that sort of really cements the role that the kind of Cosmos Hub has played as a public goods vehicle, let's say, and a public goods sort of financing arm for the larger Cosmos and blockchain ecosystem. There's a second piece there that that has been maybe sort of less appreciated, or but it's sort of in the background, which is that the Cosmos Hub is also well integrated with many service providers, right? It's listed on a lot of exchanges. There's a lot of exchanges using it as validators, running validators on it. The exchanges are, a lot of exchanges are building tech using the Cosmos SDK. So it's sort of provided a way for the tech to get well integrated into all of these other institutions and provide sort of on and off ramps into the larger ecosystem. And it remains, one of the sort of dominant on and off ramps, even though that's starting to change. We're seeing Luna get listed places and others get listed places, which is great as well. So that's sort of looking back. But sort of also looking forward, just to sort of round that out, I think there's a third, so there's sort of two key things there the Cosmos Hub is providing. One is a Schelling point for public goods funding, and two is this sort of you can call it like a monetary function, a sort of collateral function, on and off ramps and service integration function. The third, which is sort of hard to, and we'll talk a lot more about this, I'm sure, hard to appreciate yet because the Internet of Blockchains is just getting started, is its role as sort of an interchain service provider, right? And that's where all these exciting things like routing, like shared security, like the registries, and all kinds of other sort of distributed systems protocols that it could provide will start to emerge. And that's sort of, I expect where we'll talk a lot about today.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe Billy, you can share your thoughts on the kind of the role and purpose of the hub and how you view Atom as of today before we get into what's coming.
Yeah, I think Bucky really laid it out well. I like to think that if like Atom does nothing else for the rest of its life, that it's like one of the most important things that have happened in my life, and I think a lot of people's, that we've created this Internet of Blockchains, that it's like really the best use of time, energy, and capital that I think we can expect. However, I think starting from that as like a base point, patting yourself on the back, there's so much more that it can be doing, is doing outside of that. Something that I often come back to is why I'm so excited about Interchain Security, because there's sort of like multiple versions of it and multiple versions of the user story for it. And the first one, the important one to get done in terms of development, is this V1. But with V1, I like to think of it as like expanding the scope of the Cosmos Hub, this horizontal scalability thing, where it's like, the hub itself could have modules put onto the hub itself, or they could each be running as independent blockchains. And if they're independent blockchains that are using Interchain Security V1, they have the full security as if they were on the hub itself. But it means that the hub no longer needs to lead this conservative life where it's, practicing hub minimalism, trying to stay as secure as possible, that, making sure atoms are constantly transferable is as important as possible. That it means that we can actually have this really kind of like radical, cool roadmap of like even far out features for the Cosmos Hub that would otherwise never belong on the Cosmos Hub. They're just sort of like too orthogonal or too experimental or something like that, that we really have the opportunity to take the hub and make it like a very aggressive, exciting, and adventurous roadmap of features. And that leads into all the different types of bells and whistles that are across the Cosmos ecosystem and the blockchain ecosystem that I think today, we've always been very conservative about. But yeah, I mean, to say today, the Cosmos Hub has been this really sort of like conservative, let's demonstrate what the technology does. Let's do it first. Let's show how to use it, what best practices are. Let's build the world's best validator set and build, just really create the validator community across every other blockchain. They all started with us. They learned to cut their teeth there, invented the best practice, invented decentralized launches. It's been this training ground preparing us for this, universe of an Internet of Blockchains.
Awesome. Yeah. And the reason I wanted to start with that is because, the crypto space and the crypto community, especially for me as a content creator, a lot of people are very short sided, right? They want things to moon right away. They can't wait. They're very impatient, right? They don't have this kind of like long-term vision. And then other projects come around. For example, Polkadot. I talked with Jack a lot about this, and I will have a question to you in a second. And they kind of like outperform Atom, and then people say, "Oh, the Atom as a coin and the Cosmos Hub is not valuable. It's not accruing enough value, right? It's dead, right?" So a lot of people say that. So Zaki, what do you think about that when people say that? And I'm sure you also see all these discussions sometimes of people. It's definitely not the majority, I would say, but it's people also that are kind of like new to this whole idea of building an internet of sovereign blockchains. So what are your thoughts on that? Oh yeah.
There we go. All right, sweet. Let me try and break this idea down into like the simplest possible thing. I think there are a couple of things that we are that I'm like really quite sure about. One is that the value accrual, like when people think that there is some other value accrual mechanism for a blockchain other than like the value of its integrations and its community, I don't think that there's really anything else. I think that's the core of what a blockchain's value proposition is. Its core value proposition is like, where is it integrated? What is it integrated into? And what is the community that exists around it? And how does that community like bring various ideas to market collectively? And so, you know, we still are trying to figure out the model under which Atom holders sort of bring ideas to market. But like, honestly, anyone who is a long-term hodler of Atoms is very happy with this year, right? Like anyone who thinks that like we didn't accrue value this year is being ridiculous. Like we made so much money. We made money on the same scale as like the DeFi degens, like the most extreme DeFi degens on Ethereum from the Osmosis and Juno airdrops, right? And like, while in many ways Osmosis like sort of went to market as a sovereign chain and like did sort of the ICS 20 wrapped token go to market in just this amazing way, like it was the Atom community that like drove that go to market. It was the Atom community that provided the fiat on ramps and off ramps into Osmosis. It was Atoms that drove the biggest liquidity pools. It was Cosmos Hub validators that like launched the chain and have been like debugging relayers. And so, I like, we are playing a long game here. I think like one of the things that like Ethan and I were here working on this long before most of these blockchain projects were even like a glint in anyone's eye, right? Like we've been building Cosmos for a really long time. We've been building Atom for a really long time. It's constantly changing and evolving what we're building, but like this is a very long game that we're playing, and I think we did like damn well this year.
Yeah, I strongly agree, and I think people also underestimate that. I tweeted this a few days ago. People are literally complaining on my videos that the USD value of certain airdrops that are coming out right now is low, right? It's like a few $100s. I'm like, man, are you crazy? It's still a few, it's still hundreds of dollars. Even in some countries, that's for some people, a couple of months worth of salaries, and people are still complaining about these things of receiving too little free money for literally just clicking one button or whatever. It's absolutely crazy. Jack,
Hey.
What is the construction still going on, or is it good now?
It's good. You might hear some banging in the background. One thing that I did want to sort of, Bucky, I'll be right back. One thing that I did want to sort of talk about this Atom value accrual thing and sort of comparing us to other coins. The culture here has always been much more long-term focused and much less short-term focused. We spend money and time and effort on engineering, building out core functionality that's going to support entire ecosystems and nurturing and building those ecosystems. That work is inherently long-term. And, when the market, especially in a bull market, is so cyclically focused and so short-term focused, this stuff comes out in the longer term. And as Zaki was saying with the airdrops and a bunch of other things, like we've done very well as Atom holders this year. So like there's a combination of a number of things that kind of contribute to that. And I just want to sort of mention that that's the culture here. Like everyone on this call, our time horizon on this is not 6 months. It's not 1 year. It's like 5 years and 10 years.
100 years.
Bucky, what's up?
That's my timeline is 100 years.
100 years. Yeah. You know, if we want to actually decentralize the financial system and move the entire centralized financial system onto decentralized rails, which is what the mission that I've been here for is, that's going to take a while. And we need to build in a sustainable way. And, you know, that's what we're doing. And as Bucky mentioned, like it took a lot of infrastructure to be able to launch this IBC network. We had to build the best-in-class consensus algorithm that has now been widely accepted as the consensus algorithm out there. We had to build a communication platform. We had to build the SDK to build on top of these things. And, you know, quite honestly, if you had told me when I started at Tendermint that we would actually get here, I would have been shocked. It's been quite the ride.
But like the other piece that I really see is like a core part of the, you know, Atom value accrual story, just to like kind of jump in there and like, because I didn't really speak to it, is that like the size of the IBC economy is about to explode. You know, there are many pieces of the sort of Atom picture that were conceptualized in the white paper before IBC, or like sort of alongside of IBC, that finally are finally reaching fruition. Like, you know, Evmos being like, I think like really the most exciting thing that is happening. And this is very good for the Evmos token. But remember, Evmos did not exist except for the fact that Atom holders funded it. You know, it was funded for a long time under the ICF, but like the fact that it's actually going to get done is entirely due to a community fund proposition. And it's probably going to be the single most value generating community fund proposition, at least in the history of like 2020 blockchains and 2020 DAO expenditures. I'm like so ridiculously bullish on this, and it like Atom holders made it possible.
Yeah, awesome. I think we're pretty much bullish on a lot of projects within the Cosmos ecosystem. Also, we all love Osmosis. I think one of the best AMM experiences out there. But today we're all Atom bulls, at least for the next I don't know, hour or so. So Jack, I want
to. Why does Evmos accrue value to atoms? So the reason Evmos accrues value to atoms is because all of these new all of these dApps that are going to be forked or like multi-chain instantiated from Ethereum onto Evmos and dozens and like potentially dozens of other EVM compatible Cosmos chains in 2022. Every one of them is going to need assets to hold in their, you know, assets in their dexes, assets in their treasuries, assets in their lending protocols, and like Atom is perfectly positioned to be the just like a massively dominant asset into this economy.
Yeah, I think that's also one thing that a lot of people underestimate is the synergies between all these Cosmos projects.
And you know, like from my point of view, like what we're doing with Agoric is basically building an Atom-backed stablecoin.
Yeah, that's another big one that's coming. I wanted to get to Jack and kind of like move on to a different angle to view this from, which is kind of like the Cosmos hub in or Cosmos as a project as a whole in the broader context of layer zeros, right? Interoperability protocols, the Internet of Blockchains. And Jack, we talked a lot about comparing it to Polkadot on previous videos that we did together. So how do you view the Cosmos hub compared, for example, to Polkadot's relay chain, right? I think the relay chain in Polkadot has accrued a lot of value through these parachain auctions where there was a lot of scarcity actually around these slots. We talked about numbers last time, I think hundreds of millions of dollars. Now actually the first parachains went live, but on Cosmos, we don't have that feature of kind of like shared security yet. We'll talk a lot about this in a second, but how do you view the Cosmos hub in comparison to, for example, the relay chain or any other kind of like interoperability project that you see out there?
Yeah, so, you know, the Cosmos Hub is the birthplace of and logical center of IBC for a lot of reasons. And the way that we're choosing to build out our ecosystem is just a fundamentally different way than, say, some of these other projects that are more focused on the centrality of the core chain, and not really allowing other things to grow on their own. You know, what we've done is we built this open source software and we've said, if you guys want to use it, go for it. And there's this huge community that's developed around that. That will, of course, and always has brought value back to the Atom. Where we are now is we've built this network. It's the largest one out there in terms of interoperability networks. And now we just need to figure out how to, you know, continue to provide weapons to make this network the strongest one out there. And I think there's a number of ways we go through that. Billy, you are with the moon, just incredible today. I think that there's a number of ways we go about that. And, you know, Interchain Security, and Billy's going to tell you all about that in just a second, is a huge one. And this idea of sort of providing that security that is inherent to the Cosmos Hub to a number of other projects, I think is a great way to raise revenue for Atom holders and to drive value to the Hub. I think that a potentially better and longer term, more profitable one is going to be hub routing and things like the chain naming service to help enable the hub to enable a lot of these cross-chain interactions. In IBC, much like in the internet, there's no way to know who all is running IBC. So there's this huge discoverability problem. And right now, there's literally no way to solve that. With a chain naming service living on the hub could play this central point of not only routing packets, but also enabling connections between different points in the interchain. And I think that this right now sounds really far out, but in 6 months, we're going to have many smart contract to smart contract interactions. Zaki mentioned Agoric. Being able to move from a smart contract on Agoric into a smart contract on Terra via a custom IBC application protocol that enables some potentially really cool use cases. And, you know, I don't think you have to look really far for that, is great. But that's going to require service discovery between your smart contract and the smart contract over on the smart contract on Agoric and the smart contract over on Terra. Why can't the hub play that role of enabling that service discovery and helping to route those packets through the interchain? I think there's a massive value accrual opportunity there for us as well, in addition to what we're working on much more actively with Interchain Security. And I'll let Billy speak to that.
Yeah, I think before we talk about this, I wanted to ask Bucky, because I think it has been one of the actual original design intentions. And I think, at least from my perception, it's playing out right now exactly like that, right? That you have the Cosmos Hub as kind of like the heart of the interchain without having to enforce dependencies, right? For example, on Polkadot, you have the relay chain, which is kind of like the center, everything that's pegged to it. If the relay chain goes down, everything else kind of like goes down, right? I don't know, Bucky, maybe you can share your take on this design intention to not make the Cosmos Hub the center where everything depends on, and how you view it also in the competitive landscape of other internets of blockchains or kind of like interoperability projects out there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the crux is we want the Cosmos Hub to be an enabler, not something that's like rent seeking or that becomes a central point of failure or something like that. We don't want to recreate all the problems with the existing internet or with existing sort of centralized web tech all over again.
Quickly say something. It's like completely insane that people are building multi-chain architectures around this idea that if like a single consensus protocol like has a liveness failure, like what we're trying to build is a world where like blockchains are so essential to everyday life that if the entire blockchain ecosystem were to stop, like people would starve, right? That's like that's the world that we're enabling. Like that's the world of all of finance has moved to blockchains, right? And it's insane to design a system that is like dependent on like a single consensus protocol or a single software implementation, like, you know, continuing to make blocks. Otherwise, all of global finance comes to a halt. But whereas like the Cosmos architecture is like different parts of the system may break, and the system, and like we've been seeing that, like, so I don't know, it just like annoys the hell out of me.
Good, yeah, but glad you dropped in there. Trying not to get too riled up here, but I'm glad you are on our behalf. Yeah, I think that's spot on. It's just like so obvious to us, like what the right architecture is, and we've been talking about it for like years, and not just talking, building it, actual thing for years. Everyone's running around like, oh, but you're not accruing value. It's like, well, are you trying to pump a token, or are you trying to rebuild the entire internet and financial system? Which is going to take a few decades, and so. Now there is an aspect of that. Well, it's like, well, as you go, you have to build valuable products. Otherwise they won't make it into the market at all. And, you're doing this dance with like the existing socioeconomic circumstance, which is the bush we all have to kind of like beat around as we're trying to achieve larger goals. And so, part of the magic, I think, of Cosmos is how we've gone of actually producing valuable artifacts that are useful to the market at the stage it's at sort of every stage of our development. Right. And it's only really that we're starting to get to the point where now the Cosmos Hub is the artifact that we're trying to, up till now, the Cosmos Hub has been sort of an assemblage of everything else we had already built, right? Tendermint, then the SDK, then IBC, and each of those were sort of valuable in their own right. You didn't need a whole huge monolithic system to kind of come together. And now that we have the Cosmos Hub, it's like, okay, well, now we can focus on the value proposition of the Cosmos Hub. How is this going to further the overall goals and vision of the project, right? And so that's an exciting time, and it's certainly not by making everyone absolutely have to use it, otherwise everything is going to break. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, and that would be against the values, right? So the Cosmos Hub continues to be there, something that champions these values, which we've proven, we're right. Everyone is starting to come around to like, okay, this was the right way to do it, and yet for some reasons everyone's like, oh, they were right, except they're wrong about like tokenomics or everything else. Like, we're just getting started. Like, yeah,
we have a lot of tokenomic ideas. Which I think we were going to move on to talking about.
Yeah, how many of those are we supposed to talk about publicly?
There are no secrets, right?
The latest pumpamentals, whatever you can show. Share. Should we talk Interchain Security first, or you want to talk about tokenomics? What do you want to talk first? Should we do tokenomics?
I feel like I said
security, then tokenomics, because we're in this like technical place right now. So let's like stick there for one more minute and then go on to the
I felt it, because I was about to bring up the tokenomics, but I think Interchain Security now is a good transition. So Billy, share us the hottest, the latest. I think I talked with Sunny about this. He was also on my show, and we exclusively talked about Cosmos Hub and Atom. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he said, for example, and he was very vocal and public about this, that the gravity DEX on the hub was a mistake and kind of like destroyed this credible neutrality. You guys should have focused on Interchain Security. And now I think all eyes are on Interchain Security. So Billy, what are your thoughts on this? What's the timeline? What's the hottest? What's the latest with Interchain Security? And maybe also for those that are completely new, you can introduce what it actually is, it does, it means.
I have like no regrets around the way things have rolled out. Like, it didn't make sense for us to work on Interchain Security until IBC was shipped. Like, if there's no way that we could have done those things simultaneously, that's just like an absurd take. In terms of like the best use of anybody's time at the given time, like, I'm so glad that bHarvest worked on a really interesting and advanced DEX. Like, I'm excited for the future of the Gravity DEX in all the different places and things that it can do.
One note on the Gravity DEX, it's going to enable like swap and transfer type stuff. So there's a lot of potential use cases still out there for it.
That being said, I do totally recognize this sort of like problem with the hub as a location for the most exciting features of, blockchain development. And it's why, like I said earlier, that's the thing that I'm primarily, and especially in the short term, most bullish about Interchain Security, is that it's going to open up the sort of roadmap for the hub to be way more aggressive and experimental with really cool things happening. I think we've mostly talked about features that are on the roadmap right now that are pretty like conservatively tied to a vision of the Cosmos Hub that's been around for a long time, services, routing, CNS, things like that. But the idea that we're going to be able to approach those in parallel with Interchain Security with this V1 version where we're using the full validator set means that you can start getting sort of much more adventurous in the different capabilities that the hub has. So, we have our work cut out for us as it is, but that opens up so much. And if we had Interchain Security when the DEX was coming around, you know, it would have been its own zone. It just makes way more sense in that sense. It has its own capabilities, its own features for itself, while it still benefits from the security. You know, Sunny wouldn't be mad about a credible neutrality sort of thing, because, you know, it is just another blockchain in the ecosystem. Of course, it's one that uses security from the hub, which is a great feature as well. Realizing that there was this sort of like race condition or conflict across, you know, these two great DEX projects also sort of made me realize that it's important for us to get Interchain Security out there so that we don't, you know, have to come into this conflict where we want to do something exciting, but do we put it on the hub? Do we not put it on the hub? What are the dangers that it introduces? Does it invalidate our customers? You know, there's this sort of like constant question of competing with our customers at the hub level. You know, like our focus is so wide. You know, we want, it's WAGMI. You know, it's really like WAGMI at its core. Cosmos is, you know, we're all going to make it. And so like we spend so much of our time, you know, enabling people, and that's the big play. That's the important play for the long-term success of the whole project. That doesn't mean, though, that there's not like tons of exciting things that can be so much closer to the hub and closer to Atom. And so that's what I think I'm most excited about Interchain Security enabling, is that more aggressive roadmap and more adventurous sort of product development. Of course, the long term, I think, is actually much more interesting conversation in terms of economics, and is maybe a good segue to where we wanted to go, which is this sort of like larger mesh of leasing services from each other and other blockchains. And so I know you asked if I could maybe give a real sort of in a nutshell of Interchain Security. V1 is an IBC protocol that takes the validator set from the Cosmos hub, Atom denominated validator set, transmits that validator set to another chain in which they reuse that validator set. The inclusion of the validator set on that, what we call a consumer chain, is dictated by the inclusion of that validator set on the provider chain, which would be the Cosmos hub. So that way a new blockchain with its totally complete independent features is secured, and the blocks are produced by the same validator set as the Atom denominated validators in the Cosmos hub. The V3 is really exciting because it means that the consumer chain could have its own independent validator set, which gets combined in some capacity with the provider chain validator set. So you've got Atom denominated validators being mixed in with staking token specific consumer chain validators. And so you have this sort of like, you've got all the security of your own staking token plus the Atom security on top of it. But what gets really exciting there is that these relationships can go both ways. It becomes mutual insurance, mutual security across different things. So if one of us goes down, we don't both go down, but it becomes much, much harder for either one of us to go down because the attack vectors spread across these multiple validator sets, spread across these multiple token economic systems. And that thing could be even compounded. So you actually could get to the system where you have a mesh net of internet of blockchains that are all sort of sharing resources across each other. And every time another one links to the other, the entire structure becomes stronger. And that becomes, you know, much more tied economically to each other. They're sort of like sovereign state relationships, their bonds between each other, their long-term plays. And I think it really opens up a cool possibility.
Yeah, and I think from a user perspective, this could mean that if you would delegate your Atom, then you would earn multiple rewards from different chains, right? So you earn more coins, which also automatically increases the APR that everyone's chasing these days in crypto land. Bucky, you guys from Informal, you also released an in-depth, actually a very cool, good, comprehensive article about this topic. I think this was mostly regarding the V3 of Interchain Security. So what is your guys' involvement in the shipping Interchain Security? Are you collaborating with the Interchain Foundation team? And if yes, to which degree? And maybe you can share some thoughts about this.
Yeah, we're working, the Informal and Interchain teams are working very closely on this, along with some others. You know, Cosmos development is quite decentralized across organizations. All four of us kind of also represent different organizations. So the Informal team has been working a lot on the IBC component of it, and sort of how you send validator set updates over IBC and what you can do with that. And that's sort of like just a start. Those kinds of cross-chain validation protocols, we call them, could go in a lot of directions. And then we've also been working on more recently also in collaboration with Interchain, the actual staking changes that need to happen in the staking module, in the distribution module, to enable shared security to actually like roll out on the Cosmos Hub. And all of that starts to intersect with some work that Zaki and his team are doing on staking and distribution as well, to enable like liquid staking and sort of other more exciting, staking tokenomics. So all the, it all sort of fits together, and we're all working quite closely on all the pieces here.
Yeah, so Zaki, maybe you can share from your views, from your perspective about Interchain Security.
Interchain Security. So I think like one of the biggest sort of tensions that like actually comes up a lot is, so like I think that this is a term that comes from pre-DAO business structures, but right, it's like is the structure of your blockchain a holding company with a series of subsidiaries, or is the structure of your blockchain a sort of your whatever layer one blockchain, whatever term you want to call it, or is the structure of your blockchain a bunch of cooperating independent enterprises? And the first version of IBC and the first version of everything that we built was towards this model of cooperating independent enterprises. And so you do see this model, and this is like what people, when people are like, we object to the Atom tokenomics, they're like, we wish Atom was a holding company for all of the interchain ecosystem. And what I think that the first piece of Interchain Security, if it works and it's successful in the market, it will require Atom to become a lot more like a holding company. But there's actually like, I guess, two possible more possible relationships than I think of as like Atoms as like sort of an investment fund can also be a thing. We again, like primitive version of that we saw with funding Evmos. But like Atoms can be more of a can actually play a lot more roles in the interchain economy than just like holding company, independent business. There are a lot of different roles that the Atoms can play. And I think liquid staking is really about enabling some of those use cases, especially because I think it's going to be interesting to see like sort of the DEX-centric view of staking that Osmosis is taking with superfluid staking versus the sort of asset-centric view of staking that we're taking with liquid staking.
Awesome. And I also read a recent article from the Gravity Bridge Chain team, from the Althea team, I guess. And it sounds pretty much that they're potentially the first ones to implement Interchain Security. I'm not sure, maybe Billy or Bucky who has insights on that, but is that what it is kind of like the Gravity Bridge Chain, the first use case for Interchain Security? And if so, is it going to be directly deployed on the Cosmos Hub, or is that maybe something where also this Sega network comes in, that you can first test it out on there and then launch it on the hub? Or what's the game plan here?
Yeah, current game plan is that Gravity Bridge will adopt Interchain Security as soon as it's available. I mean, the complication here, of course, is that the Gravity Bridge launched, and that was actually why we were really in support of it launching as an independent chain, and so that it could launch as soon as possible. We wanted to get asset transfers moving from Ethereum as soon as possible. Of course, that project has been incubated inside of Interchain Foundation in many ways. The technology, we've been working with closely with the team for a long time. And when it comes to projects, especially like bridges, they really need to have high degree of security. And so that's why they would especially benefit from the Atom as the sort of staking token, which has the correlation of the security for the total value locked, et cetera. But the network launched, and it's currently producing blocks with its own validator set, which is great because that's how blockchains work until Interchain Security is released. As a chain who's launched with a token that's currently being used for two different things. One is for inclusion in the validator set to produce blocks, and the other one is as a governance token. It means that it will be able to run independently until it decides to update and adopt Interchain Security. Of course, it's a decentralized network, and it's composed of real people in the world and validators. And so we can build the tech, and we can be involved in the project, and we can work closely with the Althea team and develop all the technology. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the network itself to make these changes or adopt these changes. And so we can show everybody the door, and we can explain why it's really great, and we can make it prepared and ready to use and easy to use. But decentralized networks are decentralized, so we'll remain active there and continue to sort of develop in this direction because I think it's really a great option. When it actually would occur, we're going to be able to see the first instance of a Cosmos chain that has 2 tokens, one for staking and one for governance, which I'm really excited about. And so Atom, of course, would be the sort of staking token there. And then governance token would be what the Grab token currently does. And what's really interesting is that the governance system actually stays preserved in exactly the same way you're used to it in the current system. So you have, instead of validators who you delegate to produce blocks and vote on your behalf, they become purely governmental representatives, and they could still charge a commission. So it's sort of like this really wild system where there doesn't have to be limited to 150 or 200 validators. You could actually have thousands of them, because their job is not to be infrastructure node operators. Their job is to be keyed into the community, paying attention and actively participating in the direction of the network via governance. And it still makes a lot of sense to use delegation here. That's what liquid democracy is all about. And on top of that, you have this really cool economic incentive to be a good active governmental participant. You want people to delegate to you. You can still charge a commission rate because you're producing value for the network. Every time a block is produced, you can take some of the block reward, and that still goes to governance holders, still goes to Grab holders, but you still want to have a portion of that budget that goes to security, the same way you want to have a portion of that budget that goes to the community pool. So I'm really excited to see kind of a first of its kind, multifaceted economic system that is also coming from a really ambitious route, which is that it's hitting the ground running as an independent, and it'll convert compared to a couple of the other users that we have in mind for Interchain Security V1 launch, which we expect to sort of launch with V1 at the instantiation as new networks.
Awesome, excellent. Is there already, a lot of people are asking me this, is there already kind of like a timeline that you're targeting to launch? Is it Q1 or is it more towards Q2?
So the first public testnets, so the first private testnets will be the very beginning of January. We were sort of on the cutting edge of it this month, but just because we lose half this month basically to holidays, we pushed to January. The current thinking for the Theta upgrade is as soon as possible in Q1. Of course, with Chinese New Year, January is not a great time to try to coordinate network upgrades. So we're currently targeting early February. I think early February is too ambitious to see Interchain Security V1 on the hub. And so our current goal is Q2. So that would be anywhere between April, May, and June.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool and very good insights. I think the community is really happy, and we have more than 200 people watching. So I hope a lot of people have this question now answered. Is there anything from any of you that wants to add something to the Interchain Security side of things, Jack, Bucky, Zaki, or should we move on?
Well, I mean, I think this is this question of competing with the ecosystem will always will be there and become actually a lot more pressing, because there's going to be a lot more degrees of freedom in the Interchain Security world to compete with the ecosystem. And so I think we're going to have to make a decision. We're going to have to sort of decide as Atom holders, how we want that to play out.
Awesome. Yeah, and for all the 200 plus people that are watching right now, please also drop questions here in the chat. I think later we can go through some of the questions. But yeah, let's move on to the liquid staking topic.
Can I throw one last factoid into Interchain Security
sure.
that I think is really cool, a little teaser?
Sure.
There's some really, really cutting edge work that's coming on in Informal and across Interchain that will basically enable synchronous IBC transactions, and it pairs really well with Interchain Security because one of the conditions for it is that you have an overlap of some percentage of the validators. And so if we get into the scenario where we are sharing security across all these multiple lines, and we're able to have networks that have commonalities in the validator production set, we may be able to have synchronous transactions, which is atomic transactions, which means that you can have synchronous DeFi and all the sort of flash loans and craziness that we try to keep at bay in the asynchronous internet of blockchains, but you never know.
Awesome. I think, Zaki, did you pull up the question?
That's quite a dev question right there.
It is quite a dev question.
That's a real good one.
I did pull up that question. I think the mental model that everyone should have about what Interchain Security is it is Atoms as a holding company. And we may want to sort of be like a thing where we like pay off the token holders to a certain extent with atoms to sort of acquire like state machines into the interchain security world.
Mergers and acquisitions.
M&A becomes a possibility with interchain security, especially with V1. And so, I would say, like, if you take that idea, like essentially what we've done with Gravity Bridge is sort of tried to insert a bit of a poison pill, where, we hope to sort of acquire them into the state machine of the Cosmos Hub from get-go, and we'll see whether or not that succeeds. But there are other ways to buy state machines. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. Maybe we can talk about liquid staking. I think, Zaki, you're mostly working on that right now. So maybe you can share, first of all, what it is, what it means, and also how it will affect the circulation of atoms.
Yeah. So, in many ways, I'd say in most ways, like essentially every proof of stake implementation is to some degree or another inspired by the proof of stake implementation that we built for the Cosmos SDK all the way back in 2018. And the core idea is basically you lock up tokens, you get rewards that are distributed in consensus as part of the state machine for regulatory reasons that we have actually panned out. And validators are the validator set is selected by the people who have the most delegations. Frankly, we did not anticipate the rapid rise of exchange-based staking. We thought it would be a far more regulated activity and that exchanges would be concerned about becoming block producers, and that turned out to be just not a thing. And so instead, if you look at any well-integrated proof of stake chain, now the dominant validators and all of them are frequently centralized exchanges. And so this is a problem for two reasons. One is, so what are the problems? One is you rely on yield from staking in order to secure the chain. It's the inflationary rewards are what incentivize people to actually participate in the validator selection process and have funds at stake for validators to be slashed if they are bad or provably bad. And this is essential for aligning all of the incentives that makes proof of stake work. But right now, the yields on the Atom Osmo pool on Osmosis are 10x what they are staking atoms. And so, liquidity gets pulled out of the Cosmos Hub into Osmosis and is no longer securing the Cosmos Hub and Osmosis. Honestly, I continue to be shocked at that those yields have stayed so high, and also that so few atoms have unbonded to go after those yields. But here we are. The pressure on proof of stake yields will increase. And again, in the sense of we thought about this before everyone else thought about this. We put in this mechanism into the Cosmos Hub to automatically increase the yield if the staking fell down, because we were like, oh, there will be something else when we release IBC that people will want to put their atoms into, and then they won't want to stake their atoms anymore. And we would better have the yields go up automatically. So, we already saw this, long before Tarun wrote a very lovely paper mathematically modeling this, and implemented a countermeasure to it, way back in the day. So that is a summary of kind of what the state of play is right now. The future, as we expect more and more atom holders to be yield seeking, we want them to secure the Cosmos Hub, but also be able to seek yield. And this is good for two reasons. One is they probably will have better opportunity. So there's a bunch of things that there are a bunch of instabilities around the way proof of stake is currently sort of running on the Cosmos Hub. The centralized validators being dominant, validators sort of recruiting delegators through like airdrops, etc. There's like a bunch of game theoretic, there's like a bunch of instability in the validator selection process of proof of stake as it's currently implemented. And so what we want to do is move to a world where there are stronger incentives not to stake with centralized exchanges, where there are stronger incentives to like distribute the stake, and stronger incentives for someone to be actually caring, like, what do these validators operations look like? Is this just like, it's running on someone's laptop? What is the quality of the system? And the idea that, at hundreds of thousands of individual delegators, millions of individual delegators, everyone is going to do this work is absurd. So what I've been working on is a very small, like one of the goals was to have, what is the smallest change that we can do to sort of enable experimentation and building on top of this from the Cosmos SDK, rather than. So what we're doing is we're building a building block. The building block, which is ability. So, some people who sort of interact with, the Cosmos command lines would probably notice that, like, when you stake your tokens, your tokens are converted into what we call shares, which are typically, a share is 1-for-1 with Atom unless there was a slashing event. And this was a really key sort of abstraction innovation that we came up with that allowed us to scale proof of stake in the way that we have to hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of users on a single chain. So what we're doing now is we're going to convert those shares into transferable tokens. But the thing that you convert from is going to be mostly useless. Like, you're not going to be able to have like an osmosis pool of the like immediate asset, because there's not going to be a large enough fungible set. People could use it OTC, but you're going to have this like semi-fungible token that like is created by converting your shares to your shares to a pool. But what you can do then is you can have DAOs that consume those pools, that consume those assets, and issue a fungible staking token. And so what we are expecting to see as this liquid staking primitive gets adopted throughout the Cosmos is that there will be DAOs, hopefully on the Cosmos Hub using Cosmwasm, that like consume these liquid staked assets, issue like a staked Atom, or maybe even a composite of multiple Cosmos staking chains that are all implementing this primitive. And like those assets then are what trades on osmosis. You can put them into yield farms, you can put them into lending protocols, etc. And like this becomes like essentially the way Atoms sort of bootstrap a much bigger money layer based on proof of stake and consensus security for the entire ecosystem. That is a very long rant.
Yeah, no, I think that's something very exciting that a lot of people are looking forward to. I wanted to ask Jack, because I think he has to run in a minute before he's going off.
Exactly. This is a blast.
I mean, it's almost an hour already, and it feels like we just started like 2 minutes ago. But yeah, Jack, before you go, talk about IBC routing, which I covered here on my channel also a couple of times, and I think is one of the most exciting things that could position the Cosmos Hub as the interchain service provider. So talk about what's the current stage, also with the recent Vega upgrade, and what's coming in the next months.
Yeah, for sure. So current stages, you can actually route atoms or assets through the Cosmos Hub right now. The IBC router protocol is live on the Cosmos Hub. Thank you to everyone who voted for the proposal. That's fantastic. The reason why I shipped this MVP version is because it is an easy proof of concept, and what it has done is sparked a lot of discussion around how we can sort of further this routing feature. I think there's a lot of really exciting ideas there that sort of rhyme with and jive with things like Interchain Security and some of these other interchain services like CNS that we're working on. The first version of it exposed some issues that we knew existed, but it have helped sort of spark a lot of discussion on how to get around those issues. Things like swap and forward, I think, are extremely interesting, i.e. using the native gravity DEX on the hub to enable some more advanced actions that are just automated around IBC. And then obviously the smart contracting chains will do this. And right before I go, one thing I do want to plug right before I leave is the relayer DAO. IBC is nothing if we don't have any relayers. and we need to, this is one last sort of public goods funding that we as an ecosystem need to do.
It
We are
won't be
not
the
going
last.
to, it won't be the last, that's true. No, one major piece of public goods funding that we as an ecosystem need to do. I'm not going to be asking, and the folks involved in the Relayer DAO, there's folks from Informal, there's folks from the ICF, there's folks from Terra and Osmosis. There's a couple, I've seen a couple of other Relayer DAO folks in the chat. So we have a very good group of folks. We're going to go around and we're going to put up governance proposals on every Cosmos chain. And the game plan is to do it all kind of at once, so that we can compound the sort of outreach that we do and make it easier for the team that's organizing this to fund core relayer development, as well as to pay relayers to keep IBC free and to keep it performant and fast. The relayer community is doing some really exciting and cool work right now that makes everything better for folks on top of it. And, you know, we're down here kind of in the bowels of the infrastructure making it happen. So when you guys see Relayer DAO proposals on chain end of January, early February, please vote yes for that and tell other people to do it too. Anyway, I'm going to have to run, but Cryptocito, thank you very much for organizing this and putting it together. And I hope we do another one sometime in early January. I think that this was great.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I think we'll do this regularly. I think the community.
I think that people don't. You know, I think like one of the beautiful things about doing this was we actually all just sit around and talk in Discord and in our meetings about these issues.
Yeah, we do this all day.
All day long. And I think a lot of people in the Atom Holder community don't really get a window into how hard we work on all of this, how much thought goes into it. And I think it is a deficiency of what we've been doing so far. And so, you know, when the suggestion came up from to do this event, I think like doing it on a regular basis and just sort of, you know, seeing a little bit more of how the sausage gets made and how hard we all think about, you know, the future of Cosmos, I think will be great for people. Happy holidays.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
Thanks,
happy
everybody.
holidays.
Hell yeah.
Happy holidays,
Happy
everybody.
holidays, guys.
I think I don't know, Bucky and Zaki, if you guys are still have a few minutes. Because Billy, do you still have a few minutes, or are you also gonna run?
I don't know about I'm okay.
Okay.
Drop, but I look forward to the next one. Thanks so much for organizing this.
Awesome.
Thanks to everybody
Yeah,
online and everything in between.
Yeah, thanks, man,
Billy.
and happy holidays. Yeah, because I think we can before we wrap things up, and maybe we can also answer a few community questions. There's a lot in the chat. I wanted to talk a little bit about the tokenomics. Wolf Contract.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, Wolf Contract also made a poll. I don't know if you've seen that, whether Atom should become deflationary, and then there has been a lot of discussions around it. So what are your thoughts on the current kind of like dynamic inflation that Atom has that readjusts automatically based on how much is staked to the network? Do you think that's something that will still be there in 10, 20, 30 years? Do you think there's necessity to change that? I think a lot of people always anticipate, you know, to have it more a pumpamental coin that is going up, right, with this kind of like thought. So what are your thoughts on the current tokenomics? What's potentially got to change, or if any at all?
I have thoughts here. Do you want to go first, Ethan, or do you want me?
Sure, go ahead. I mean, I think we probably share. But
so I would say that my general perspective is I think we can get to near zero Atom issuance. I think a couple of things have to work. I think that staking derivatives 100% have to work, because you have to be able, if you staked atoms, you still need to be able to have like go find yield on them. If atoms are a staked asset that is not yield generating, like none of this will work. But if there is a place to stake your atoms and generate yield, the other thing that is sort of key to that working is you can generate sort of external yield, but you also need to have sort of native yield that is coming with the staking protocol. And there are two ways that we can sort of reduce Atom issuance. One is, you know, if Interchain Security really works and there's like lots of subsidiary chains that are, you know, issuing tokens to Atom holders, like that sort of creates a source of native yield that can be that it doesn't have to be that much if liquid staking is working, but it has to be non-zero. And so that's like one piece of it. I'm like fundamentally don't believe that transaction fees will ever amount to anything in significant in this ecosystem. But I think, you know, if we take more of an M&A type strategy with Atoms and the community fund, there should also be like other tokens that we're holding in the community pool and in governance and sort of protocol controlled value that can be used to like buy back atoms and burn them. So those are like kind of my like core thesis about like where we're going. Short term, the thing that I've like wanted for this year and never gotten around to actually working on is switching from also once we have liquid staking and it sort of takes off, right? We don't need this proportional atom inflation thing, like that is obsoleted by the liquid staking idea. So then we can also just move to like fixed atom issuance every year, where we issue a fixed number of atoms every year post liquid staking.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. The original plan for atoms was to have no issuance and to use demurrage. The idea of demurrage is that it's basically effectively a negative interest rate. So the longer you hold the token, sort of the more it disappears from your account over time. And that was going to be the incentive for people to stake, so that you would have to stake to not have the negative interest applied. But for a variety of reasons, we went with the staking model rather than a demurrage model, and it seems like that is definitely up for change in the future. To start with, we could just look at lowering the inflation rate, but that doesn't necessarily achieve that much. But moving to fixed issuance and potentially even also additionally moving to a demurrage model could be quite interesting to sort of make up for that. So that's one. But then there's also like a lot of other pieces. I don't know that I agree that fees will be nothing. I think there's still quite a lot of potential for fees, especially if we have fees coming in across the whole interchain and from like shared security zones and all that sort of stuff. So there is still a lot of opportunity for Atom secured infrastructure to generate a lot of activity that could accrue back to the staked atoms. So there's a lot of potential there. There's also just like all the basics, like tokenomics sort of across the ecosystem is growing up. So that'll all come to the Cosmos Hub as well. Things like EAP 1559, so that the fees can actually get burned, and that could be an atom, and potentially that could use like a native DEX on, or in the ecosystem of DEXs to turn any fee into atoms to burn them to actually participate in the fee market, stuff like that. So there's sort of a lot on the table for the tokenomics, and these are things that we're discussing all the time. And then the other thing that's actually sort of hinted at is this idea of like Atom in the hub sort of becoming like a holding company, partially through shared security, but also through the kind of experiments and like just business development and relations that the hub can have with other chains, and Atom potentially becoming something like an index into the other chains and into the other sort of Cosmos coins. That's been informally materializing through the airdrop season, right? But
sorry.
That's all good. People are not fungible. Everyone forgets this.
Sunny and I are fungible.
I don't know. Sunny thinks people are fungible. Sunny thinks that the people that worked on Gravity DEX could have and should have just worked on Interchain Security. I don't think it works that simply, but people are non-fungible. Keep that in mind, folks. When you hire engineers and treat them like they're fungible, you're going to have problems. I completely lost my train of thought, which was that Atom as an index token. Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting opportunity for Atom to become, so it's sort of been informally immortalized as as an index token through these airdrops, but that's not really a sort of continuous process. And one of the things we're starting to explore a lot now is how we can actually make that, and sort of as part of also the Atom continuing to be a Schelling point for financing public goods, how we can make that a more continuous process, so that there's sort of a continuous stream from all the different projects in the ecosystem to the sort of core Atom, and Cosmos Hub and Cosmos Community Pool community. And that's a lot of stuff that we'll probably see, explored quite a bit in the next year and couple of years. So there's sort of a lot on the table for Atom tokenomics that is all very exciting. That goes far beyond, I think, just the kind of simple things that people have talked about, and just like, changing the inflation rate and whatever.
Yeah. Over the holiday season, I'm trying to take a break mostly I'm trying to take a break from running companies. Protocol development is something I just like do.
That's for fun. That's what you do.
Protocol development is, yeah, it's fun. It's like once you start doing protocol development, I've never really understood this idea that people are going to stop. Like,
yeah.
It's like the most fun thing ever to like have like drawn the protocol on a whiteboard and then like later send like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for it. Like that is the best feeling in the world.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah. So you know, I'm working on like a liquid staking roadmap to like actually get the pull request that is sitting in that we've been working on for like almost 6 months. And like grateful we are, you know, Occlusion is grateful for funding from the ICF for the liquid staking work. Like it would not have been possible without the funding of the ICF to work on it. So, you know, we've been working on that, and we have a plan. We're going to work on that, and I have some other plans for proposals for Atom Tokenomics that I'm not really ready to talk about, but I'm planning on working on over the break.
Before we do,
like this is technically I'm on vacation.
Before we do a few community questions, which by the way, Bucky, last time went really well. Binance is not the largest validator anymore, so I'll give you the credit for getting this done.
I don't know if I can take the credit for that, but I'm happy to.
I mean, the video got like more than 30,000. That clip on Twitter got like more than 30,000 views. So I don't know.
Cool.
Let's just say it was because of you.
I'll take
Let's
it.
just say it.
I didn't know lobbying was that easy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but right now there's another scandal around Binance because they're holding atoms in hostage there, and but anyway, that's another seminar. Maybe before we get into some questions, both of you, maybe you guys can share what do you think, or what is the current priority on the Cosmos Hub and Atom? We talked a lot about different things now. We threw in IBC routing, liquid staking, interchain security. The Gravity DEX, Emirates is also still there, right? So what do you think is kind of like the for 2022, the priority list of things that are mostly being worked on?
Yeah, at a high level, it's these three sort of features. So the public goods, as like continuing to make Atom, you know, a primary place where public goods are funded, improving governance. There's a lot of sort of features that are coming sort of under the hood, like Auth-Z just shipped, which is going to improve a lot of things, like being able to allow governance to actually vote on the execution of messages, and doing that over interchain accounts. Like governance is going to be able to send transactions on any chain in the ecosystem. Like all that stuff is going to be, you know, it's hard to emphasize what's going to be possible once these like little pieces all come together. So there's a lot of little pieces, and all of them have been like in the works for a long time. Zaki's talking about liquid staking, like all these things. And so in 2022, we'll probably see the priorities really on bringing all of those together and shipping like a coherent, you know, experience for a lot of that. So, you know, so that sort of public goods governance stuff, the interchain services, which is primarily shared security and routing. So you'll see, you know, shared security, at least one, if not two or three versions, LAN, which will open a lot of potential, and the routing story is going to get a lot clearer, especially as more chains are coming online. The sort of routing problem is becoming a lot more important. And then that last piece is the sort of, you know, Atom as kind of monetary collateral, or playing a sort of monetary function, which has a bunch of pieces sort of leading up to it. So those are sort of the three high level categories: the public goods, the interchain services, and the sort of monetary function. And because there's, you know, there are a lot of organizations working, and there a lot of people in those organizations, we're sort of, you know, pursuing a bunch of these things in parallel.
Just to go back to this like multiple organizational structure, right? In 2020, we like did this whole, you know, what Ethan calls GORE, the Grand Organizational Refresh thing, the reorg. But like we weren't able to actually become an entity that could execute on parallel paths simultaneously. That's what we did not do in 2020. 2020, we were multiple entities, but we were all working on shipping IBC. And then we shipped 2 DEXs simultaneously, of which one succeeded in the market. That was kind of our story as a multi-organizational entity. I think like one of the things that has been really good that happened in 2021 is like we have become an entity, like multiple entities that are are sort of working on multiple things simultaneously and executing at them at like significant velocity. And like I think you'll see all of that come out, sort of really start hitting 2022. But that was like, that to me was like, you know, one of the things that we always fantasized about. And you really feel it and you see it. And like if you're in the, you know, the chat, the non-public chats that like, you know, core contributors hang out in, and all of the Signal and Telegram and Discords and all of this stuff, like we're all just kind of pushing, you know, everyone's pushing. And like, nobody feels like blocked or encumbered by anyone else in the ecosystem. Like we have all of these technical problems that we have to solve, but like, we're just like we're all working on it. It's like this is the vision of decentralization that I think the other thing that like some people in crypto recognize, but maybe is like what people want from decentralization is like what Cosmos embodies right now. Like we have a bunch of shared state machines. It's our primary form of coordination. Like no one is in charge of anyone else. There's no CEO of Cosmos. Yet we build, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars live on top of our infrastructure. We do incident response. Like we've shown that it can be done. Everyone else is, you know, got like one labs company and, you know, somewhere in the world that like writes all the code. We don't.
Yeah. And
as a result, like Atom is immortal. Like there's nothing, there's nowhere to come. There's nowhere to go. There's no bus crash is going to take out the Atom dev team because there are like 40 of them.
And I think also what we've seen throughout the year, I mean, I'm completely new to Cosmos, right? I just stumbled upon it in late last year, I think January this year. And then, you know, Jack brought me in and I kind of like got into the community, and I saw also the community exponentially grew over the past few months, especially, you know, with the Cosmos event that we did. So many people came there. The DeFi Times guys are now all in on Cosmos, fully converted Cosmonauts. So you see like a lot of also YouTubers covering it more and more. And I think that's also very important from the community aspect, right? Zaki, in the beginning, you talked about the importance of communities. And I think you can really see that with Cosmos. More and more, it's also trending on these social media analytics tools like Luna Crash, right? And all these things. And I think that also shows that the kind of like architecture of Cosmos is getting more and more awareness as being this unique internet of blockchains out there. But yeah, maybe we can wrap it up with just a few questions. I just went through some, and most of them have actually been answered. A lot about tokenomics, liquid staking, interchain security. Camille has a question, a good one, who is also the guy, I don't know if you've seen that, who made the meme with Sunny and me and this Brazilian Sertanejo song. It was absolute gold. I love it. So he's asking, how do you see the final form of the Cosmos ecosystem as you're building it right now? Are you satisfied with the progress of the ecosystem? Maybe Bucky, you can take that first.
The final form, that's the question.
The final form, and then are you satisfied with the current progress?
Yeah. Okay. Final form is hard because we're like creating the infrastructure that defines the future and then figure things out on top of it. For me, the final form is like a political economic endeavor to reformulate the global economic system to be much more localist, much more self-sufficient and sustainable, and to use the technology we're building to better represent stakeholders in the state machine. That's what sort of my whole long-term thing it's all about. You can watch my videos about that, hear more about that. I think right now we're doing a good job. It's exciting to see everyone sort of realizing the Cosmos vision and flocking to it, and there's a huge amount of success happening on Cosmos chain, so that's really exciting. But I like to see things that are a little bit more connected to reality and a little bit a bit more out of like the hype and casino and sort of gambling stuff. As fun as that is, like there's a lot more I think we can do in the real world and to help real communities and work towards that sort of longer political economic vision.
Zaki, do you have comments to that? Or
well, I'll say this. I thought there was this moment back in like I would say like 2016, 2017, when I felt like I could see all the way to where we are today. Like I was like, BFT is going to work. That means proof of stake is going to work. That means that interop is necessary, and like there are going to be like just like an ever expanding universe of blockchains. But I honestly don't know what happens kind of now. Like what blockchains are going to get faster. Like there's like so much performance room. Like interop is going to move beyond this like wrapped token formulation into being about, you know, higher level protocols. Users are probably going to not know what blockchain they're using at some point. And like beyond that, I have no idea like kind of like what the future holds. There's just like a lot of stuff to be built to sort of you know, with the way I view the like casino aspect of all of this stuff is it's like we're building like you build a casino. The casino is where people build railroads and roads and, you know, utility lines and generators and all to like connect to the casino. And then eventually the casino goes away. But all of that infrastructure is sitting there and it gets used by real people. That's how I've always viewed what we're building. And I've always felt the like anti, you know, Web3 Twitter memes to be ridiculous because this is always how you build things. Like you always, like every core piece of infrastructure gets like built out in a speculative bubble. And then like after the bubble is gone, the railroads and the roads and the electrical infrastructure all is there. And that's like what powers society. So
awesome. Yeah, a lot of people have also asked me through Twitter and all the platforms about Celestia, right? Because Celestia is also working on a shared security model and architecture. What are your thoughts on that? And in the comments, somebody also asked in that context whether you can share your thoughts on Evmos, which is this project emerged between Evmos and Celestia, and their role in the ecosystem.
Maybe I'll take Celestia and then Zaki can talk about Evmos. I think we're both advisors to the Celestia project. We're both huge fans of what they're doing. One way to understand it is that you know, the Celestia structure with sort of data availability and roll-ups requires certain things out of the execution environment of the chain. So for instance, it's difficult, you know, I think this is one of the things that we're sort of struggling with and why they're going in the Evmos direction. It's difficult to build these kinds of general purpose roll-ups and fraud-proof technologies for the Cosmos SDK. So that's sort of, you know, one thing. And another is that the guarantees that the sort of roll-up data availability structure provides are arguably complementary to what the shared security sort of system can provide, right? So shared security, you still have like a full-blown, or at least Cosmos version of shared security, what we're calling interchain security. You still have a full-blown blockchain running, which provides all the guarantees that like a validator sets provide around, you know, sort of decentralized kind of block production and sort of liveness guarantees and so on. Whereas in roll-ups, you can slim that all down to like a single proposer or potentially, you know, some small group of them or something. So there's a lot of complementarity between the Celestia approach and the Interchain Security approach. And I think both sides are hoping for some kind of convergence down the road. Maybe once all this, you know, M&A activity kicks in around the Cosmos Hub, there'll be some kind of, you know, offering a relationship with the Celestia layer, and also a lot of what they're building into, you know, around the Cosmos SDK and so on can sort of come back into IBC and to the Cosmos Hub. So there is, you know, there's sort of complementary approaches that provide different kinds of guarantees over shared security. And I think we can expect them to come together somewhere down the road. But for now, I think because of the challenges with sort of doing it in general for Cosmos SDK chains, you can't really provide the Celestia guarantees in general for every Cosmos SDK chain right now. So the Cosmos Hub is sort of focused on, all right, let's provide shared security to Cosmos SDK chains and do this using the interchain security approach. And you know, Celestia is like, well, okay, we need to target an execution environment, and right now that is sort of the EVM, and we'll do that through Evmos, for example.
So okay, so I have a little bit of a different way of framing this problem. There are 3 next generation technologies that like are necessary to like fully unlock the potential of blockchains. So one of them is data availability sampling, which, you know, this Mustafa Vitalik sort of came up with the idea. Mustafa was, I think, literally the only person on earth who was really working on it back in 2016. Only person who understood the problem really well. And so that's why they're so far ahead on that. The next 2 technologies are interactive fraud proofs and validity proofs, sort of the zero knowledge proofs and the interactive fraud proof stuff. And like, you know, I think like, again, like, you know, the intellectual capital of the blockchain space is so vast, right? Like, you know, Tendermint was a whole key enabling technology that you have some of the best computer scientists in the entire world, Ed Felton and Ellie Ben-Sassoon, like Ellie, like working on validity proofs and interactive fraud proofs have just been like, you know, a huge accomplishment. But on the other hand, like Tendermint is running in production, kind of no compromise, full decentralization right now. None of these technologies are running in production a sort of full decentralization yet, really. Like no escape hatches, no multi-sigs, like, you know, like when we launched the Cosmos Hub, we launched it with no net, right? Like full decentralization, no controls, no, like proof of stake network runs the whole thing. And we're not there yet with any of those technologies yet, where it's like full decentralization. So I view Celestia as kind of really kind of the next generation or the final generation of the Tendermint sort of architectural system. But it really relies on all three of these pieces actually being able to work, like full decentralization, no net, like all out in the world. And I think it's just wonderful that we have such an amazing team at Celestia, and like we have Starkware exists, the ZK Sync work exists, Arbitrum exists, Optimism exists, that like so much intellectual power is kind of sort of going into the last step of the architecture. But I also know how long it took to do Tendermint and how painful it was to do Tendermint, and Ethan knows how painful it was to do Tendermint. And like honestly, how no one has really truly eclipsed that work in my mind yet. And so, you know, for all the billions of dollars that have gone into like building another Tendermint, right? And like we did it with like, you know, maybe like $15-20 million, right? And so so it's going to be a little while before like the sort of next generation architecture is at the level of maturity that Tendermint is at. I think everybody's going in the right direction. And so like Interchain Security, IBC, these are all the things that you can do with just Tendermint, as a primitive. When you add Tendermint plus data availability sampling, plus interactive fraud proofs, plus validity proofs, yeah, like you can do a whole, like it just like unlocks a world transforming architecture. And so, but like how long that will take as an engineering, I don't know. But all of this stuff moved like way faster than I was anticipating. Like I did not think that we would have like, you know, like multiple general purpose zero knowledge Turing complete machines. Like I remember the first like, you know, papers that proposed this and reading them back in like 2015 about like little academic projects. And it was like, okay, you need like, you know, 20 terabytes of RAM in order to like keep this, you know, build proofs and stuff like that. And now we have like things running in production like this. It's insane how much progress that we have made.
Yeah, back then it was just like magic moon math, and now it's like live.
Yeah, it's just amazing, right? Like we, you know, and like I will just say, like, you know, the Interchain Foundation, we funded so much of the work. We funded a lot of the early, like, you know, zero knowledge. We funded early zero knowledge proof research. We funded like early data availability sampling research. Like we were there funding a lot of this stuff when no one believed it was possible. And so, you know, this is all the fruits of the last 5 years, sort of coming home.
Awesome. Given that we're almost at an hour and a half, I think we could take one more question and then we wrap it up. More of a general question. Douglas is asking actually two questions. What are the big gaps that you currently see in the ecosystem? And secondly, what are you most curious about? What has tickled you? So maybe Bucky, you can start, and then Zaki.
What tickles me? I'm tickled by RAI. I am tickled by non-government based unit of account, and like actually engaging with, you know, new kinds of monetary theory through all this technology. So that stuff I'm really excited about, because I want to actually figure out how to tie it down to the real world, and not that sort of RAI is sort of very clever kind of approach to a stable coin that's pegged to itself and uses like, you know, control theory to balance the stuff out. But seeing the sort of control theory stuff come into the blockchain space more broadly and have it be applied to solve very interesting, difficult sort of monetary problems is really tickling me. So yeah, and I think maybe that also sort of relates to the gap, which I think is having strong non-fiat units of account and having real connections to the real world, and actually having this technology start to be used. The rails that are being used for casinos, let's actually start using them for some other valuable things as well. So that's sort of what I spend a lot of time thinking about, and what I'm hoping will actually be start making some plans to address in 2022 as well.
Nice. Yeah. I can give, what are the big gaps in the system? I really want someone to do so I have this proposal that I tweeted out, I don't know, 6 months ago. I'll tweet it out again. I should make a GitHub repo for it. Cinderella tokens, which is, I think somebody needs to do an async lending primitive. Like we have been doing asynchrony in DeFi has been like is sort of the missing piece of a lot of this multi-chain world. It is sort of like kind of the core argument for Solana is that like multi-chain, like asynchronous DeFi won't work, and so we need these like giant synchronous fast, like a big synchronous state in order to do certain financial operations. And I actually don't believe that this is true. But like, I don't have time to build Cinderella tokens. So I keep shopping it around to people to see it, to get people to build it. It would probably be a lot easier once Agoric finally fully ships.
I like the way Adler put that. Sorry, this is sort of a tangent, but on the show he just did with you, CryptoCito, about like Solana is like the only chain that isn't setting a limit to their capacity. They're just like gonna keep growing the size of the nodes. Like if it requires supercomputers to run Solana at the end of the day, like they're just not gonna give up the one giant mainframe sort of vision. Which, good for them. They're gonna take it to its extreme. But yeah, the async protocols and in general, sort of redeveloping all of distributed systems literature, like it used to be between multiple machines, and now it's going to be between multiple like blockchains, right? So all those sort of protocols and async protocols is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, like you could do like one of the core ideas. So there's this thing in distributed systems which is called a two-phase commit. And there's no reason why you can't do two-phase commits across multiple blockchains, just the way you do two-phase commits across multiple computers. And like you can then get a lending protocol out of it. And so I'd be like I'd really be psyched to build it. If no one builds it in like a year or two, I'll probably build it. But yeah, and then the other thing that tickles me is protocol controlled value. Like Sommelier is all about protocol controlled value. I'm just excited about, I think that is another big, like one of the big innovations. I think if we had, probably the biggest piece of the future that we didn't see way back when is like, we didn't realize how hyper dominant automated market makers were going to be. It was just like, there's so many different ways of building a DEX. And it's sort of a surprise to me how much automated market makers just won. So.
Guys, this has been amazing. Anything?
Someone mentioned IXO here. I just want to call that out because they are doing a bunch of good. There's a few Cosmos projects doing some real world work. IXO is one. Regen Network is one. There's the IDCC guys in Hong Kong building sort of time banks and stuff. They're working with the IXO team, and there's others. So there are a bunch of Cosmos projects, which are actually really starting to engage with the real world and use this tech for real world impact, which is like super exciting. So more of that, please.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been great. Thanks for all of your time. Means a lot. And I think we learned a lot today about the Cosmos app. There's a lot going on. So I hope we can do this frequently, maybe once a month or something.
I would love to do that.
Let's do it. Yeah, sounds fun.
This was great. Thanks again, and we'll keep in touch and see
Thanks
more
a lot,
of you
everyone.
on Twitter.
Happy holidays. Happy Saturnalia.
Yeah, happy holidays, and make sure also to delegate.
Newton's birthday is December 25th.
Right on. The ultimate.
And make also sure everybody to delegate your atoms to with Cephalopod. Is that how you pronounce it? I was going Cephalopod, Occlusion, and then we have also Jack's Strangelove validator, right? So delegate to these guys, And thanks everybody for tuning in, for the great questions, great engagement. Atom to the moon, I guess, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks a lot,
Take
guys.
care.
Thanks, Zaki. Thanks, CryptoCito. Take care, everyone.
Bye.